Because it's your point of view and your voice, it's slightly different to anything else. And because it's a blog, it's more just like a written conversation. I think people think, oh, if I'm going to do a blog, oh, I don't have time to do that. I've got to research the subject and and it's like, no, everything you know to write a blog, pretty much, is going to be in your head already with the experience and the knowledge that you know now. You can draw from all of those things to write. And so you're kind of letting people see that, yes, you are an authority, possibly an expert, if you're not too scared of that word, without having to feel salesy, without having to say, that you're the best person or anything like that. So I think it feels a lot more comfortable.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Value Whispering podcast. I'm your host, Melitta Campbell, business coach, value whisperer, and advocate for introverted female experts who want to build a business that feels natural, authentic, and enjoyable. Each week, I explore what it really takes to create a quietly impactful business, one that thrives through meaningful marketing, value-driven sales, and self-leadership. So if you are ready to attract your dream clients, sell with confidence, and create lasting success on your own terms, you're in the right place. And today I'm speaking to Jane Travis, an expert in all things blogging, particularly as a marketing tool for therapists and counselors. Now, you may not be in that space, but if you have a service-based business, I think you're going to resonate with a lot of what Jane has to share today. She shares some brilliant tips on how to approach blogging in a way that feels natural, authentic, and enjoyable. Because what we have both learned, and I'm sure you've learned the same as well, if it's not enjoyable, we don't do it. And if we don't do it, we don't have the results that we want. So we need to find marketing that feels authentic, that we can do on a consistent basis. And we're going to talk about why blogging is so impactful and how you can make it really meaningful and valuable for both your clients and for you and your business, and how you can be consistent in showing up and sharing your point of view. And amazingly, after more than 250 episodes, this is the first time we're diving specifically into blogging. So I'm really looking forward to sharing Jane's views with you. But before I bring Jane in, I want to invite you to download my brand new ebook, The Introverts Business Growth Playbook. Now, if you want to unlock the secret to quietly impactful growth, and you've been wondering if you have to choose between growing your business and staying true to yourself, then this guide is going to be a game changer for you. It's going to show you how you can attract your ideal clients, those people who value your expertise and get amazing results from your collaboration without having spent hours on social media. It will show you how you can stand out in your marketplace without having to be loud, flashy, or compromising on your integrity. It talks about how to convert prospects into clients through meaningful conversations instead of pushy sales. And it's going to help you create sustainable growth that respects your energy and your strengths as an introvert. You can download your free copy at melittacampbell.com/playbook. And I'll put the direct link to that in the show notes for you as well. Meantime, here's Jane. Welcome, Jane. It's great to have you with us on the podcast today.
And it's really fantastic to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I can't wait to have a chat.
And we've been in summits together and we've passed many times before, but we've never actually met or spoken. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know a bit more about you. And we're going to talk about blogging as a marketing strategy. And we haven't actually talked about this on the show before, which I couldn't quite believe. I was going back to the episodes thinking, we must have covered this before. And we touched on it in Natalie Allsop's episode when we were talking about websites and SEO. And of course, blogging is a great SEO strategy. But we've never had a dedicated episode on blogging. So thank you for coming in. This has been a long time coming, and I'm really looking forward to diving into it because we were just talking about how much we both love blogging for many different reasons. Before we do dive into all of that, though, I'd love to hear more about your story, and if you could share with the listeners how you became a blogging expert today and how you find that niche over time.
Thank you. Well, I used to be a therapist. like a counsellor. I was a counsellor for 14 years. Brilliant job, loved it. Well, I actually qualified in 2005. That was the time when Facebook came out. Before then, we were doing things like advertising in newspapers and advertising on the yellow pages. Remember them? That's something that's just not around anymore. So it really changed everything about marketing. And I really enjoyed it. It was just really exciting and new. And as somebody who's very much an introvert, I find being able to hide behind words, online is really great for me. I'm not so keen on standing up and talking, but if I can sort of hide, and that's why I've got a podcast rather than YouTube, and why I particularly like blogging in the first place. It's a place to get your voice heard in a way that feels okay if you've got I guess, a quieter voice. So it's one of those things that I found really fun and interesting, and I got more and more into this whole online thing. For therapists, it can be tricky to do your marketing in a way that is very ethical. You've got to be very careful about confidentiality and personal disclosure. And I thought, well, how can I help people to, stay within confidentiality rules? How can I help people to talk in a way that's not going to be, oversharing or something like that? So I gradually got more and more interested in the marketing side. So as much as I loved seeing clients, I also got really interested, and I spent all of my time, looking at what was going on and learning things and looking at other blogs and all the rest of it. And I just really, really enjoyed it. And then I started a networking group that was specifically for counsellors, and I ran it for 4 years. And we got together and we did a little bit of training, and then we went to Weatherspoons for some cheeky lunch. And I got more and more interested in the fact that here are these fabulous, highly qualified, passionate therapists that really was struggling to get clients. And some of them were saying, I can't do this. I'm going to have to go and get like a proper job. And I thought, well, that's crazy. And I started to think, well, I wonder if this is something that I could help with. Maybe because I've got these newfound, this new stuff that I've been learning, maybe I can help people with that. And I thought, well, I can't, I haven't got enough training. But after a little while, I talked myself into the fact that I think I can help people with this without a degree. I don't have to go and get a degree. I'm sure I can help people with this. And I've always been very much a fan of the phrase, feel the fear and do it anyway. So I kind of thought, right, I don't really know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to give it a go. So at that time as well, Facebook groups were a really, really good thing. And obviously, they're not quite so much fun anymore. Now, I say that they're not quite as easy to grow and develop into a really big community. But back then, Facebook groups were quite new. Facebook was, really encouraging people to have a group. So I started a free Facebook group just for therapists, really to be looking at their marketing. And I just loved it. I had that group 2 or 3 years, I think it was. And eventually, I thought to myself, how can I really monetize this? Because I was still doing a few bits and pieces, but I wasn't really making a lot of money out of that side of my business. And I thought, maybe I should do a course. And then I thought, well, if I do a course on this, then they need to know the stuff around it. If I do a course on that, then they'll need. I thought, how am I going to get all these pieces to fit together? That's not going to be one of these, over £2,000 jobs. And at that time, there were a lot more people starting out with memberships. It was starting to really grow. And I thought to myself, well, maybe having a membership is the way that I can help people with all of these different things. So I can help them with things like niching and what to put on your website and, blogging, social media, mindset, all of that stuff. So I had the chance to talk to people about all of these different things and have guests in as well. So yeah, I felt the fear and went for it. Then after a while, I felt the fear again and I went for it and wrote my book. And really, it was just a happy accident, the way it all sort of developed, because I love counsellors and I love marketing. So it just works really well for me. I'm able to do that thing that we all crave, having a job that you love. And it's life-changing, isn't it, when you get a job that you love? It really, really is. So my membership has sort of changed. And at the moment, I'm really focusing on the blogging side of it because I think it's such a fabulous thing for everybody, especially therapists, to do. And coincidentally, I'm literally just celebrating the 7th anniversary of my membership, and my 200th podcast goes out tomorrow. So we're really at this place where it's just all of these memories have been coming up from, where everything started and where we are now. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, congratulations on those milestones. They're really significant ones.
They are, aren't they? Yes.
Yeah. And I love so much of your story. But what I'm quite impressed about is you talked about, well, not impressed about, but I'm pleased you raised them because you said at the beginning that you're an introvert. And then you went on about how you developed a networking group and you had a Facebook group and you built a community and you went and did live videos and you've done so many of the things that we are told so often that introverts don't do that. And so I love that straight from the get-go, we've touched on the points that, yeah, of course we do. we can do anything we want to do. And there's no such thing as marketing strategies for extroverts and marketing strategies for introverts. It's just how you embrace and adopt them in a way that feels right for you. So you've clearly done that. And I love your phrase, I felt the fear and went for it. I love that. I think I'm going to be adopting that. Put it on a poster on my wall. But on that point, before we go into the blogging side of things, because you mentioned that I felt the fear and went for it 2 or 3 times in your story. How did you do that? Was there anything that you particularly struggled with or something you found helped you to rise to that fear and go for it?
Was there something that helped me to do that? I think I've just got a tenacity. I think I'm a very tenacious person. There's a large rebel inside of me that is constantly pushing me forward, I suppose. I actually suffer quite a bit with anxiety. I'm naturally quite shy. I don't have a huge amount of confidence. I'm very good at play acting confidence, but actually inside, often very, very scared, which is quite normal for a lot of people, I think, isn't it? And that's why I say that I think I'm quite tenacious because it's like, well, if I want to do something, I know that I've got to do it. So if I want to start a podcast, I know that I'm going to have all sorts of things in my head saying, well, you should never do that. What have you got to, who's going to listen to you? All of those things. And I know if I'm going to do it, then I have to actually just go ahead and do it. One of my favorite quotes is, action is the antidote to fear. And I push that the whole time because it's only by taking action that you can actually help to alleviate some of those fears. Certainly, that's what I've seen as well. Yeah, I don't know if that's answered what your question.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think I'm a bit, I don't know if it's tenacious or just plain stubbornness, but sometimes I have a vision and I just frustrate myself sometimes so much like, goodness sake, this isn't going to happen if you don't do something about it. You're not going to have this impact. You're not going to change the world or help anybody if you don't just do this. And
Yeah.
so I will kind of faff around for a while and then just give myself a kick at the
Yeah.
backside and get on with it.
Don't kick
um,
yourself up the backside. You must be more gentle with yourself.
well, one of my clients did say that I don't so much give them a kick up the backside. It's more of a sort of soft Ugg slipper.
Oh God, I love it. I love it.
So let's dive into blogging because it's quite a big topic in itself. And I love it as well because, as you said, you can hide behind the words and you can have an impact no matter how you feel about being visible and showing up. And you can weave it into everything else. So I used to use my blog as a start point for podcast episodes or talks or the next stage, but it gave me that chance to kind of refine things and get the structure, test things out, and then I'd also break it down and use it in a million different ways. So I really am a big fan of blogging. What was it about blogging that you thought, yeah, this is the strategy I'm going to go all in on?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that when it comes to certainly online marketing, I think there's kind of this trilogy, isn't there, of social media and some sort of content creation and you. It's something between, it's those three things seem to work well. And as a foundation, I think for anybody in any sort of business, having a combination of those things, in various different levels is something that's a good foundation that you can then, that's your springboard to go off and do anything else that you want to do. It's a great way of getting found, a great way of letting people know who you are, what you do, who you help, how you help them, and all of that. for me, back in the day when I first started with it, podcasts weren't really a thing. So that wasn't an option back then. Remember, I'm very old, far older than I look. I'm 83 now, not really. But podcasting wasn't a thing then. And I don't think YouTubing was as much then. We're talking quite a while ago. So blogging was something that was really popular then. Everybody had a blog back then, and blogging was fabulous. Anything you wanted to find out about, you didn't go to YouTube, you went and found a blog about it. And that's how you found who were the sorts of people that you wanted to then learn from. So that's where you'd find a coach from, or that's where you'd go and find a course about a particular thing. The people that wrote the blogs, you would then start to follow them, and then you would start seeing the things that they were offering, and you thought, well, I like them, I like the way they talk, I like their style, and you picked the people that you just thought, yeah, I could see myself being around that person. I think I could learn from that person, and that's how it started. Um, I don't think at that time I ever thought it was any sort of strategy. It was just another thing that I did. It wasn't like I didn't think about what I need to do is do this amount of blogs and do it in this particular way. At that time, it was just, right, I want to write blogs that are going to help people to choose me from all the other therapists locally. And I'd heard about blogging and I tried it. It was as simple as that. And I'm really big on experimenting. I'm really big on just give something a go. Give it 3 months, try it, give it your best shot and see how it goes. And I suppose it was a little bit like that. It was just, oh, I'll just try it and see what it's like. It doesn't cost anything, nothing's lost. If it's not good, I can just delete them. So if somebody out there is a bit scared about, the visibility or how it's going to be, it's very low risk. Because again, of course, when you're first starting out, people aren't really going to see it very often, are they? Because he's still starting out. So you can then go in and change it as you learn a bit more. You can change your blogs at any time. And so that's kind of what I did. So I started that on my counselling website. And then after a while, I started another couple of small businesses. When I was a counsellor, I used to talk about like relationships with food. So I started a little business called Friends with Food that was blog based. And I offered training and things to do with that. And then I stopped doing that for various reasons. And I started janetravis.com. It was all about self-care for people pleasers. And they always say you teach what you need to learn. And of course, I'm not, I'm a bit of a people pleaser. And so I started writing from that side of it rather than it being a counsellor, which meant I felt I had a little bit more freedom. And it also meant that I had another little side business where I could offer some services that was slightly different. So I started really using my blogging in that way. And back then I used to use Pinterest a lot, which I haven't used for years. I don't think it really quite took off the same in the UK as it did in the US. But yeah, so that's when it started to be something that was the cornerstone of the business. The business was all blog based. Everything was around the blogs. I suppose that's when I started taking it a little bit more seriously, I suppose.
Yeah. I used to love Pinterest. But Pinterest goes so nicely with a blog and it hangs around for a long time. It's more of a search engine than social media per se. So that's what got you started with your blog. But why do you still do a blog today? Because you do have a podcast. So why do you feel it's beneficial in today's world for business owners to look at blogging?
Well, when I think about my niche, which is helping therapists and counsellors, they have a fear and a worry of being judged. They have a fear and a worry of being visible. They just want to work with clients. They don't really want to do marketing at all. So for me, it's about, right, how can I help them find a way where they can do their marketing kind of as easily as possible? And blogging is a really good way of doing that. I think that I haven't got any evidence around this, but I suspect a lot of counsellors are introverts. Not all, obviously, but a lot are introverts. And therefore, blogging is such a good choice for people that are introverted, because if you're quite a deep thinker, that's a great way of expressing stuff in your blog. I think as well, by writing a blog, it just sort of ticks quite a lot of boxes. So it's going to help you get found, it's going to help your website to get found because of the SEO and all the rest of it. Also, if you're a therapist, there are online directories, but the online directories these days are so busy, really, really busy. And I think if somebody's looking on an online directory and they see you and they go and check you out and see that you've written blogs, if they go and have a look at the blogs and think, right, this person's really talking to me, she's answering the sort of questions that I have, and all of these blogs that she's writing, it's like she knows me already, then that means that you're far more likely to be seen as an obvious choice. The other thing is that it's a way of letting people know that you know what you're talking about, that you're an authority, without having to do that thing about, oh, I do this, and showing off. I know a lot of therapists who would never use the word expert to describe themselves. So when you called me an expert, just for a moment, I went, oh, is that okay? Whereas in a blog, just the fact that you're writing a blog, just the fact that you're writing a blog about anxiety from your point of view, means that you know something about anxiety. And because it's your point of view and your voice, it's slightly different to anything else. And because it's a blog and it's not an article, it's more just like a written conversation. I think people think, oh, if I'm going to do a blog, oh, I don't have time to do that. I've got to research the subject and I've got to, and it's like, no, everything you know to write a blog, pretty much, is going to be in your head already with the experience and the knowledge that you know now. Because you do what you do, you already have this different way of looking at things. You've had years of experience, you've had, your own personal experience, the experience that you've had in your training, the experience that you have with clients, you've got your own life experience and issues with relationships and your own anxieties. You can draw from all of those things to write. And so you're kind of letting people see that, yes, you are an authority, possibly an expert, if you're not too scared of that word, without having to feel salesy, without having to say, that you're the best person or anything like that. So I think it feels a lot more comfortable for people to just do the writing. And like I say, you can write and nobody's seeing you, you're just words on paper, but you can allow your personality to come out as well.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I really enjoyed about a blog, being more introverted, is that I like to think and reflect and
Mhm.
put something aside and come back to it and craft it. And that's why I still to this day, I really don't like live videos because I feel under so much pressure and I gobble my words and it's like I always come away disappointed. So I don't even go there. My podcast is about my limit.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I like that I can really take some time to make something great that I know is going to be helpful and that I'm proud of.
Yeah.
And as you said earlier, I can always go back and update it. So
Mhm.
about a year ago, I went back to a few of my blogs and reviewed which ones are still relevant and update those a little bit with my point of view today. And it wasn't that much different, to be honest, but there were a few things that I thought, oh, this bit's missing. So I was able to elevate those and then, yeah, just republish them. So it was great to do that. But there were a few things you touched on there, and words of my clients were echoing in my in my head saying, but how? So one thing you said, that when someone finds your website and they see you have a blog and they're reading it, they can start to see that you have that, dare I say, expertise, that you understand them and you're presenting some information that shows that you have the knowledge and skills and tools to support them and help them solve their challenges. But how do you find the questions that your clients have? So you mentioned there that there's a lot we already have within our experience, but how do you start to pick out the elements of your experience that answer someone's question and will be interesting? Can you share a little bit about how you find questions or how you advise your clients on that?
So for me, it's all down to niche. And this is again something that for a lot of therapists, it's quite a difficult thing. They want to help everybody. But as you know, the more you can tighten it up, the more likely you are to get the clients. It literally is all about niche. When you know who it is that you want to serve, when you've got an understanding of who they are. And sometimes I think that we teach what we need to learn. So I would say that sometimes the counsellor that's working with anxiety is a counsellor that might have struggled with anxiety in the past or maybe still struggles with it now, because it's very often these things don't just miraculously go away. So it might be that you can think about, right, okay, before I had my own counselling, how was I feeling? What would have helped me? What did I need to know about counselling that would have allayed some of the fears that I have? So it is literally about being able to do your very best to get into the client's head. Now, I devised something, I call it the empathy exercise, and it's basically when you think about your ideal client, have a think about their day. This could be something you do in 10 minutes, or you make it a bigger job and do it over a week or something. Think about when they wake up. When they wake up, how are they feeling? What's happening? Are they on their own? Is it quiet? Have they got kids running around? Is their husband there, or is he in the spare room? Are they full of dread, or are they excited about something? What happens when they go downstairs? Do they have breakfast? Do they not have breakfast? Are they having an argument with somebody? Just everything about that day. And just think about what little things can you add to their lives that might help them. So, for example, if your niche was to do with anxiety, you might think to yourself, right, okay, I'm driving to work, and you might start to be feeling a bit anxious. So you might in a blog talk about the benefits of podcasts and how could you listen to a podcast on the train or in the car as you're driving to work. Or you could talk about maybe just some really simple tips that they can use sitting in the car park before they go into the office or something like that. So the more that you can get into the head of the people that you want to work with. And that's why I say you don't have to go and research this. This is all inside you. You will already know this. All it takes is a little bit of a kick up the bum with your Uggs, just a little bit of a push to be able to go, yeah, I do know this because I see clients, and when they talk to me about this and about that and about that, and then you can put it all together. Then you can start just writing a big list of all of these different things, how people feel in the morning, how people feel in the afternoon, and what do they do when they get home? Are they on their own? Do they go out and see people? Do they go to the gym? And you just think about everything that they do. I call it the empathy exercise because you're trying to put yourself in their shoes. How are they feeling? What if they're going to go and meet their friend for a meal? Do they feel worried getting there early and having to walk in on their own? Do they feel worried that they'll be judged for what they're going to eat? So you can see you can pick away at so many different things that you could talk about. And then if your niche is anxiety, you'll make everything that you write about underneath the umbrella of anxiety, and that's what your blogs are going to be.
Yeah, I really love that exercise. I have a similar one I call steer statements with my clients. So if you've been working with clients for a while, then you will know
Yeah,
what typically comes up for them and answer those, because if that's a challenge that your client's been having, it's a challenge that your future clients are going to have as well and relate to. So you can use that current experience. So yeah, I love that exercise.
yeah.
And you also mentioned how you can bring into your blog your point of view
Hmm. Yeah.
and have it in your voice. And I know this is something that I really struggled with because I've been writing for my entire career. So writing in a corporate voice for various different brands, for different companies on the behalf of different leaders. So when it came to then writing as me, I found that really hard. I was like, oh, well, what's my voice? And it took me a long time to kind of find that and feel comfortable having a point of view. You kind of feel that you need to blend in, and then that voice pops up. Well, who might say this?
Yeah. Yeah.
What if other people disagree with me? How do you handle that? So I guess it's 2 points. How do you find your point of view and feel comfortable sharing that? And when this little voice pops up of, well, you can't say that, you don't have the authority, how do you then feel the fear and go for it anyway?
Yeah. Well, I think your average counselor or therapist isn't necessarily going to write about something that's going to be quite polarizing. So it's unlikely that you're going to be writing something that's really controversial.
Mhm.
When it comes to finding your voice, I think for me, there are a couple of ways to do it. The first thing is just to make sure that you keep the writing conversational, just like you would talk to somebody. And the way that I sort of suggest that you do that is that, you'd write it out and then you just literally read it out loud, and you'll trip over any phrases or anything that doesn't sound like you. By reading it out loud, it's like you're hearing it for the first time. And that's a really good thing to do.
I
I
used
think,
to do that a lot when I was editing my work because, and in any industry, there's certain jargon that we get used to. But as you say, when you say it out loud, it stands out and think, hold on a minute. If I was actually saying that to a friend over coffee, they'd look at me as if I'm daft.
yeah.
And you can start to see the phrasing that's too long or doesn't sound like you, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
I always say, literally imagine you're sitting with one of your ideal clients for a coffee, or maybe a friend who struggles with those same sort of things, and think, well, how would you talk about it to them? Because you wouldn't talk about it as though you were writing an article that's going to be published somewhere. You'd be talking about it in a lot more friendly way. And I think as much as anything, it comes from just practicing and trying and having, I'm going to say courage. That sounds maybe a bit too strong, but it can feel like you need courage to use the words that you would choose yourself. One of the things a lot of therapists struggle with is this idea of, is it okay for me to share stuff about myself? And that can be really tricky for counsellors because everything that they do in their training is about the counsellor is very much like a blank slate. So it's not for you to have your personality in the counselling room because you're focusing on your client. It's not about you. So you're trained about the fact that, you don't want your client to start imagining a life that you may have because it's a little bit detrimental to the work they do if that happens. So you have to be a little bit careful about what you share. So it comes down to boundaries. It's about knowing your boundaries, and it's slightly different for everybody. But sometimes it can be really useful to share a bit more about yourself, and sometimes you might not want to. So, for example, if you work with anxiety and you struggled with anxiety either in the past or you still get a bit anxious now, then I would feel quite okay to just say, you can go at it from lots of different ways, but you could say something like, in your blog post, you can be talking about anxiety. You could be talking about, I don't know, feeling anxious going into a cafe for the first time to meet a friend. And you could talk about this and say, for some people, this can be a real struggle. And I know when I used to struggle with anxiety, it's something that I used to struggle with as well. So you can just do it in a little thing there where it's not saying, this is my background and this is what's happened, but it's just saying, look, I understand this because I've actually lived through something similar. So just a simple sentence like that is enough to let the reader know that you've got a deeper level of understanding about this. Your learning's not all from books. You've got this experiential learning from you having gone through something similar. And that's a good way of finding your voice just by sharing the fact that you do have this different level of understanding. Does that make sense? I don't know if I've gone a bit off track there.
No, I think it's a wonderful approach to it. And also, it helps the reader to feel not so alone and weird. Because when we're experiencing these things that we don't see everyone around us
Yeah,
experiencing, then that's how we can feel. And that's just why I love my group with my clients, because very often they're struggling with something like, oh, finding a blog topic, and they feel that they're the only one that's struggling with this. But then when everyone else can say, oh, no, I've struggled with
yeah,
that, and I was like, oh, yeah, I found this helped me. And they feel a little less alone and they're encouraged to then, oh, well, there is a way out of this as
yeah,
well. So I think it helps find your voice, but it also serves your client in
yeah.
a deeper way as well.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the great things about a blog. Because what you can do is you can normalize, like I say, I'm working with therapists, so that's helping people with all sorts of different things. But you can normalize that, take imposter syndrome, as we know, pretty much everybody will have some imposter syndrome at some point. So you can normalize what they're going through because people feel very alone. And then they see that actually this is a normal thing. And it's just letting people see that you're not alone, you're not a freak, this is a normal thing that people will struggle with if they've had your history. And that normalizing is just a really gentle way of letting people know that, you're all right, this is okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that works on so many levels. So thank
Mm.
you for sharing that one. The other thing I was curious about, you mentioned right at the very beginning that you're a big fan of experimenting. And I've said several times on the show that, marketing is just one big experiment because what you see working for one person may or may not work for you because it depends on your skills, your strengths, your message, your clients, your channel. There's so many different variables. Of course, you can look to other people for clues and some guidance, but it's still a bit of an experiment. But now you've been experimenting with blogging for quite a while now. Have you seen any patterns? If you were to go and start again, is there anything you've seen works? I think, hey, well, now I'm studying, I would do this.
And what might I do differently? I think I would have taken it more seriously. I think I would have made sure that I had the consistency there because As with a lot of things, consistency is really useful and helpful. I think writing a blog post and then not writing another one for like 12 weeks and then writing two in the next week. And, if there's not that consistency, it sends out a message really. That was why I started doing a podcast because I knew I would do it every single week. I still produce a blog that goes with the podcast, but when I was just doing blogs on their own, it didn't feel like I had that deadline to work to. So for me, that deadline was really good for the podcasting, and I'm seeing all of the benefits that we get from doing something consistently. People know that I'm going to have a podcast come out every Thursday, and people know where to find it. People know who I am, and people have got to know me because of it. And it's exactly the same with a blog. If somebody, for example, finds you from your website or social media or a directory, and they find you and they're not yet ready to come to counselling, but they see that you write, you know, blogs that are to do with the sorts of issues that they have, then they're likely to keep an eye on you. So they might, keep coming back to you or follow you on social media so that they can keep up to date with it. And I think what I would have done differently when I was starting out was I would have got more intentional with it. I would have realized that this is a really phenomenal marketing strategy that, like I say, it's free to do. It takes a while to learn, but as you go on, it takes less and less time. Every blog that you write, you can repurpose it in so many ways that it ends up saving you loads and loads of time. You can also republish the blog. There's so much you can do with it. So I think if I had my time over again, I would have taken it far more seriously and really prioritized content production. I think it's really important.
Yeah. And on that, do you have any advice on how to be consistent?
Well, for my clients, I recommend them to do it once a month at the start because it can feel so big. So I say, right, do it once a month, see how you get on with it. But even once a month, it's still got that regularity. Now, in my membership, I do help people with this every month. I call it the Content Creation Cafe. And we come along and I teach them something to do with blogging. And then we also then do a bit of a big brainstorm. And they'll leave with the outline of a blog post that then they can go and finish it off. But I think when you know it's a priority and you know how much benefit you're going to get from it, then when you make it a priority, then you save some time in your diary. So what I do now, I've actually picked this up from a friend. She does Creativity Thursday. So on Thursday, she puts together her YouTube video and she also has a podcast and she does loads of that sort of stuff on a Thursday. And I thought that's a fantastic idea. So I've cleared my diary out for a Thursday and I say, right, I'm going to use my creativity on a Thursday. I don't see clients then. Basically, I write what I need to write. So I'll do my podcast, I'll do my blog from it. I'll think about what social media posts, what emails I want to go out. And I actually prioritize it and give it space to make sure it's not a job that just gets done when I remember. It's such an important part of the business. It actually has a proper time that I devote to doing it.
Yeah, I do something similar, but mine's on a Friday. And it's just interesting there that you kind of alluded to the fact that once you understand how important your content creation is for your business, then it's much easier to do it on a consistent basis.
But I tried to make it into a really nice experience. It's no fluke that what I do is called the Content Creation Cafe, because as anybody who knows me knows, I love to put my laptop in a bag and go to a cafe or a nice pub, have some lunch, do some work, do some writing. I try to make it a pleasurable experience. If it's a nice day, go in the garden, go to a park, walk through somewhere with your dog and then have a coffee at the end and do some writing. So I just turn it into as nice an experience as you can. And then, well, it's going to be something you look forward to rather than something that you dread doing.
Yeah. Yeah. We forget sometimes, and that's one of the big perks of working for yourself is you can work from anywhere. You can do and whatever hours as well. You can do
Yes.
whatever you want. Make it
Takes a
exciting.
bit of getting used to. If you're used to going out to work and you're told when you've got to work and what you've got to do and when's going to be your dinner hour and when you're allowed to have time off, when you realise that, yes, you can go and see your child at sports day and you don't have to ask permission, that transition can be quite hard. And one of the problems I think people have is that they feel that there must be a way of doing it, a right and a wrong way, and that to be in business, I have to get business cards. It's there's an idea that to be in business it involves doing this, but it doesn't. It involves doing whatever's right for you, using the skills and the qualities that you've got.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think particularly as women, we're masters of feeling guilty about everything, but we just need to ditch that and say, no, this is what works for me. This is what makes me feel good. This is how I perform at my best and create great content or support my clients in a brilliant way. It doesn't matter. It's really, really personal. And I think the more we allow ourselves to do that and have that permission to lean into whatever works for us to get the best results. It doesn't mean that working 9 to 5 in an office is, I don't think many people feel that that's where they do their best work. But I remember when I worked in an office, one time I took a week off just to write from home. We had to develop a new brochure, and it was a big campaign we were working on. I was like, I can't do this with all the distractions in the office. And I just got so much done in this week. And they were like, you should work from home more often. And I was like, yeah, why don't I? I just hadn't given myself permission and felt guilty doing it. But actually, the results I got were so much better.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
My
listen.
friend did that. She wrote a book. She went and got herself an Airbnb for a week, went off and did just focused on the book with no other distractions. I think she had her phone turned off all day as well. So
Mm,
find whatever way you want to do it.
yes, yes, you have our permission.
Yeah.
There's one other thing you said that I just thought was really nice and I'd like to highlight that thinking about your blog as a conversation, not an article. And I just thought, oh, that's going to just take so much pressure off so many people. And it doesn't have to be like the top 50 ultimate tips of everything, just those one or two things coming
Yeah.
back to your empathy exercise that will help your client today, that will show that you have the understanding, that will help them feel less alone, give
Yeah.
them something to work towards or something to challenge their thinking and come out with a different perspective. I think sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves to do something that's like the best,
Yeah.
which was another topic. Sometimes as introverts, we like to reflect and get things just right and that feel that we're putting something meaningful and valuable out into the world, which is brilliant. But if you turn that scale too far, you can get stuck in procrastination and perfectionism, which can, of course, hold you back. And if you have this information and it's not getting out there, it's not helping anybody, least of all you. Do you have any tips on how to feel comfortable clicking publish on your blog?
Well, this is such a good question, isn't it? Because I mean, I can remember once many years ago, I had so many blogs in draft. I think I've had about 24 blogs in draft that were never quite good enough. I think it's one of those things that you just have to keep working on because I'm very much a perfectionist because I just think nothing's good enough. It's not that well, I'm crossing the T's and dotting the I's, but it all comes down to it's not going to be good enough unless it's 100%. So it's something I just have to keep working on. And like with anything in business, one of the big things about business is it's not just about marketing, it's about mindset, learning about yourself, learning about where are you self-sabotaging, where are you giving yourself too much to do? What are you doing that could be done easier? And this is one of those things where if you know that you're a perfectionist, then it's about saying, right, I need to learn more about this. So it might be that you say, right, I'm actually going to go and see a counsellor and have a bit of a chat about this and get down into it. Or I might listen to podcasts or I might listen to a book. So if you recognize that, right, I think I'm a perfectionist and it's slowing me down, then that would be a thing to focus on. You'd make that a focus so that then over the next 3 months, you might say, I'm really going to learn as much about it as I can. I'm going to have a look at some EFT tapping things. I'm going to look at some meditation. I'm going to do some journaling. I'm going to just really look at it as a little side project and just start learning a bit more about, where it might be coming from and the sorts of things that you can do to protect yourself from it. When you recognize that this is holding you back, then it's about, right, I have to do something. And that's where the tenacity comes in to say, I'm not letting this stop me. I mean, people sometimes beat themselves up, don't they? They might beat themselves up and go, I'm so stupid. I've got 24 drafts on my website. But something that's a bit better way of looking at that really is just to look at everything with curiosity. So instead of beating yourself up, to say, well, that's interesting because I really want to do blogging. I know it's going to be really helpful. I know it's going to help me and I know it's going to help the people that are reading it. It's going to help my business, etc., etc. So it's interesting, isn't it, that I'm not putting these out. I wonder what that's about. And the more that you can look at it from that, rather than "Oh, such an idiot. Why have I, the more that you can say, well, isn't that interesting? I've just done this when I said I didn't want to do that. And that gives you more of an opening to explore it from a gentle place of kindness rather than that nasty inner critic place.
Yeah, I love that. And getting to know your red flags.
Yes.
And also, if anyone listening is experiencing that, procrastination is a problem for them, go back and listen to the episode with Robin J. Emden because he wrote the book Get Resultsology, and
Oh,
we
right.
had a whole discussion on how to stop procrastinating and the brain science behind that as well, which is a brilliant episode. So go back and listen to that. So, is there such a thing as a perfect anatomy of a blog post?
Kind of yes and no, really, because there are so many different types of posts that you can put out. So you've got your kind of bog standard how to. So that might be, how to get a good night's sleep, for example. That's not a very good example. But it might be something that's a how-to post, or it might be 5 ways to do something. So you'd start there with some sort of a hook, and then like an introduction bit where you're going to talk about what the problem is and where it might come from. And then I would look at now whether it's going to be 5 ways to do a thing, I would still look at having like a number of subheadings. So I'd be thinking in advance, I'd do a big mind map and I'd think, right, what would be the things I want to include in this? Then I'd do a mind map and then I'd put all of that in some sort of order of how I'm going to write it. Then I'd have a conclusion and a call to action. So that would be a basic blog post. But there are so many different types of blogs that you can do. You can do things like a review post where you might want to review different podcasts on the subject that you're interested in, or different books, or YouTube channels, or, all sorts of different things. So obviously that's going to be slightly different. But your basic bog standard one is going to have a hook, an introduction, you're going to get into the meat of it with your subheadings, and then you're going to have a conclusion and a call to action. And that's your basic one, really. And people often ask, how long should it be? And it's like, well, they do recommend about 1,500 words to 2,000 words. But if you're starting out, write what you can. You can always come back and add to it. That's the beauty of it. So it's better to just write it, get it out there. You can always improve it later. Yeah.
And one thing that I used to find really helpful is to do a series. So I would explore one topic, but I'd have one which was more how to, one which was more of a case study or a more personal experience, another one where I got a group of experts and asked them what are their thoughts, and I had 5 or 6 different people sharing their opinions on that. So I think that helped me anyway, just to have one topic, but look at it different ways. And then that was 3 to 4 weeks all done at the same time. So yeah, I think, as you said, just experiment and see what
Yeah.
works for you. Yeah.
I did that with neurodiversity. So I've got 4 therapists who are neurodivergent, and they came along and talked about their experiences as a therapist. So I turned that was like a mini series. And I did that for Christmas as well, Christmas problems. And then you can drag that out every Christmas and you can then reshare it at Christmas, turn it into social media posts and the whole shebang there as well. But there's so many different ways that you can use blogging in order to get something out there. It's using your creativity and thinking about. At one time, I got a load of the members. I asked them, what's the one piece of advice that you would give a new therapist starting out? So you can use blogging. If you're quite a creative person, this is a great way of letting that creativity come out. That's the way I see it. And if you're a creative person and you feel a bit stifled in marketing sometimes, this is a great way to let that creativity come out.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to ask, what are your thoughts on blogging and AI?
Logging AI, that's a really interesting one, actually. I've been doing a lot of work on AI recently, and I am putting together a workshop where I'm going to be sharing with my members some of the things I've learned. I think it's a great tool, but I think when we remember why we're blogging, so the reason that you're blogging isn't just to share a piece of information. It's about sharing something about you. It's about sharing your personality, letting your warmth show, letting your knowledge show, letting people think that if I want to go to counselling, that's the person I want to be sitting with because they they get me. I can feel it. They would understand me. What they're writing about shows that they understand how I feel, and I won't be embarrassed talking about it because they will understand. If you just give your blogs to AI to do, then you're just going to be putting an article out there and it's not going to have any of those connections that are going to form. And I suppose, not all of your listeners are going to be counselors, obviously, but I think whatever your business is, you're wanting whoever your ideal client is to recognize that you're going to be the best person for them. And although AI is a great thing and it's a great tool, it's great for repurposing, it's great sometimes for ideas. And sometimes I'll write a paragraph and I just don't know how to end it. I can just put it into AI and say, can you just rewrite this for me so it flows? And they do, and it's fabulous. But I would never say to AI, just write this blog for me, because for me, one of the real purposes is it's from me. And that's the selling point for me. So I think AI is a great tool and it can help you and save time. And it can certainly do things like checking the flow of a blog. You can ask it to just have a look at each paragraph that you write and think, can they write it a different way? But it has to still be your voice. You have to make sure you can train it up now really, quite easily to understand who you are, who your clients are, and learn your voice. But it's never going to be quite the same as you speaking, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's a great tool and, great time saver. But if you're blogging, it's not just about the words that you're saying, it's about sharing yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love AI. It's helped me so much.
Yeah.
But I'm always telling people your marketing isn't about you shouting louder, it's about resonating deeper. And you can only do that if it's you, if it's really coming from your heart, your experiences. And AI will never know that.
Yeah.
They can really never fully understand the human experience. Only you can overlay on that
Yeah.
and have a human conversation. And I was working with a new AI tool yesterday, which is designed by a real expert in storytelling, and it's supposed to be amazing. But everything I put into it, it kept coming out with something that felt so generic.
Mm.
I was like, but it's taken the meaning out of everything. So it was a good experiment and it did come out with some nice structures, but now I need to rewrite those structures
Yeah.
with what I really mean and what I know really connects with my clients. And yeah, I think
Yeah.
we have to remember that with a blog and with any kind of marketing, we're starting a relationship with our ideal clients. We're bringing them in. It's an invitation to collaborate and get to know each other and see can we do something interesting together. And so it has to come from you. So yeah, I love that
Yeah.
advice.
And I think as well, another thing that kind of goes back to a question from earlier about finding your voice is the value of storytelling in any of your content creation, the value of telling your own story. And of course, AI, it's just not going to be able to do that. And there's a real value for sharing your own stories.
Yeah, completely. Brilliant. Jane, I've really loved this conversation. You shared so many interesting points, and I'll come back to you when I can read my writing. I've missed. Um, but before we wrap up, is there anything you think that the listeners would really benefit from knowing, or something that you see people misunderstanding or missing when it comes to blogging that would really help?
One of the things that I was thinking earlier when I was talking about taking yourself off to a nice cafe and having some cake and doing some work there. Because I think the biggest thing when it comes to marketing is all about making it something that suits you. And I think that, I suppose the tip, it's not really to do with blogging, I suppose, but it's about robust self-care. And by robust self-care, I mean remembering that you are the most important person in your business. It's not the clients. You are. You're the most important person. So it's really important that you make whatever you do fit in around what you like. And that's not just about bubble baths, as we know. So have a think about what are the boundaries that you need. Think about it now. What do you want to say no to? What do you want to say yes to? What are the sorts of things that is going to make your work better? What's going to work for you? What times do you want to work? What times do you not want to work? And really prioritize that. So really know what your boundaries are. And it's one thing saying these are my boundaries, then you've got to enforce them and learn how to say no and that sort of thing. Because you have to protect yourself. You have to protect your energy. You've got to protect your own well-being. Because if you go down, then your business goes down. So the best thing you can do is to really make your business suit you, practice robust self-care so that you make sure that you are not overstretching yourself, and enjoy your business as much as you possibly can. It's a fabulous thing having your own business. It can be a fabulous thing. So make it the dream business for you. And if you love your business, then it's going to be successful. Just is, isn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The longer I do this, the more people I work with, the more I see that the underlying key to real success and sustainability is self-care, self-love, self-compassion. And once you have that, you will keep to those boundaries because you have that self-respect and you see the impact and how much more you can do when you're coming from that space of self-love as well. So yeah, brilliant note to end on. Thank you so much, Jane. If people want to know more about you or they want to read your blog, where's the best place for them to go?
Well, you can have a look around for Jane Travis, Jane without a Y. Everywhere you go, I'll be either Jane Travis or Grow Your Private Practice. So my Instagram is Grow Your Private Practice. On LinkedIn, it's Jane Travis, obviously.
Fantastic. And we'll put those links in the show notes as well for you. Jane,
Lovely.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been lovely. It's been really nice chatting with you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode and you've come away with a fresh perspective on blogging and how it can be helping your business to grow in a really meaningful and impactful way. And I'd love to hear what you've taken away from this episode. Do come and let me know on LinkedIn. You'll find me there at Melitta. That's Melitta with 2 T's. And remember, your marketing doesn't have to be loud, pushy, or overwhelming to work. When it's aligned with your values and your strengths, it becomes a tool for connection and not just blatant self-promotion. If you have enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you would share it with your network and your business besties and leave a review for us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps more people to find the show and benefit from all the wisdom that my guests have shared. If you are looking for quietly impactful business growth, you can get your free business growth playbook at melittacampbell.com/playbook. I'm your host, Melitta Campbell, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye.